Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Gwen and I'm a clinical psychologist who's been obsessed with empowering disabled teens and adults to live their absolute best lives. In this video, I'm interviewing Kelly Privitt, Director of AbilityFirst's College to Career program. We'll get into what this program is and who it's best for. Kelly shares a personal experience that brings hope, and make sure to stay to the end where Kelly and I talk about the skill that she believes empowers people the most. If you want to skip around, timestamps are in the description below. All right, let's get to it. Hi, Kelly.
Hey,
thank you
how are you
so
doing?
much for being
You're welcome.
here.
You're welcome.
Good. Thank you. So why don't we start with telling us about yourself?
A little bit about myself. So I'm Kelly Privitt. I work with AbilityFirst. I've been with AbilityFirst for about 25 years. I started as a volunteer 3 years prior to that, running a Girl Scout troop for them in Claremont. And I just thought, this is a place I want to work. So after getting my BA in behavioral science, I applied for a job probably 3 weeks after that. To be their program supervisor, and have just been working with the agency and through the agency. With AbilityFirst, I was a program supervisor for a few years, worked for their headquarters doing quality assurance. I think that's really my strength, is building systems to help people be able to navigate, regulations and rules. Then I went over to their resident camp in Malibu, so Camp Joan Meyer. I did that for about 8 summers, which is incredible training for behaviors, because you get to meet your campers. Day one, some you know, some you don't, and you've got 7 days to bond, make a difference in their lives, and learn how to help them be successful. When I left there, I went back to headquarters and ran all of their licensed programs. So group homes, adult programs, children's programs. And then from there, moved over to doing quality assurance and data management for our CPO, which is truly, again, my strength. I love being able to help programs get better at what they're doing. As my CEO calls me, I'm the fixer. So I go in and I'm able to help strategize and help them just develop a better program. And then from there, I got to work with the College to Career program when they lost a director. And after about 3 months, it was like, I need to be in this program. Like, these are my people. This is my tribe. And between the staff, I love the staff age of entry-level staff members, trying to really help them launch their careers, as well as our students of that age of 18 to 24-year-olds trying to figure it out and trying to be a grown-up. And then my personal background, I have a daughter on the spectrum who was diagnosed later in life. So I've been living the, person-centered plan with her and all the glory of a 22-year-old. And then about 11 years of volunteering with mental health adolescents. So a lot of experience doing that.
I mean, I have had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working with you. So I can say firsthand that you were just a complete breath of life into College to Career, into C2C. So, wow. And it's so cool to be able to do this, because I didn't know all of those juicy bits about you. And I just, it's like, it just adds more, like, I don't know. I just love it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So I asked you to choose a virtual background.
Yes.
So tell us about these lovelies behind you.
So this was a day, I call it the proud mama moment of when my students started sending me photos because they realized they took over a city bus. So we do a lot of, all of our programming is in the community. So it's either at the Pasadena City College or it's on I call the mean streets of Pasadena. And so they are learning how to ride the buses, how to use the trains. And we happen to be doing a workshop at the Westcom building, professional workshop we do when the students aren't in school or when it's like a scheduled break, like winter break, spring break, we do a series of workshops. So we don't stop during that time. And the Westcom building was gracious enough to let us use it and kind of grow up and be professionals. And so the students, I drove back to the office and I was, waiting for them to do what they were supposed to do. And I started getting pictures on my phone. And I was like, what is this? And what they did is they realized they took over the entire city bus. And what I loved and what I was so proud of, when you look at all the pictures, you can't tell who's who. And that was what I really wanted in the program. I visited a lot of programs, and you could definitely tell the us and them mentality, who are the staff, who are the non-staff. And one of the things that I really, if you're going to mentor somebody and if you are truly going to help make a difference in their life, you have to build rapport and you have to build trust. And the only way you can do that is to be treated equally. And this was one of those moments that it was like, we're there, that my staff have been able to do what I need them to do. And it's just so much fun. They're having so much fun. And just as I would expect me to be having, my friends to be having, my daughter, and that was just one of the greatest moments. So that's why I picked this background.
I love it. I love like the faces. They're gorgeous and happy, and they're just having a blast, and it's so great.
Yeah. Well, and even the ones that are trying to look cool, like there's one, here he is, the guy with the sunglasses. He's like, I don't know you people.
Right. Which is also very developmentally appropriate,
exactly,
by the way.
Right? It's total 20s, right? And I think that's the whole thing, is that I have a group of young 20-year-olds being young 20-year-olds, which a lot of times, especially when our students come to us, they don't know how to be young adults, right? They've been so programmed to be a certain way that this is, for some of them, the first time they're hitting their developmental stages as they should be, right?
Yeah. And given the opportunities, to do so, which is also important. So let's maybe get into, talking about describing what college to career is. Talk to us about the program.
Okay, so the program it's hence the name, college to career. So our students have to want to go to college, or they have to want to experience college. So we have some people who know, I want to go to school, I want to get a degree, but I need some support, right? We have other ones who say, I don't, just like every other young adult, I don't know what I want to do. I think I want to go to college, so I want to try it. So we allow students to explore that part of their lives. So one of the things that we do is we really help the students find out what's important to them, right? So ours is very much a person-centered plan, and it's what's important to them, not to their families, not to anybody else. And so we really work with them to start having their dreams, dream big. So if a student comes to me and says, I want to be a doctor, my job isn't to be the dream crusher, right? Just like all of us. I mean, you happen to be a doctor, that's different. But a lot of people say, I want to be a vet, I want to be this. And then reality sets in of, maybe I don't want to go to school that long, or maybe that's too hard. As a lot of my staff say, biochemistry told me I was not going to be a doctor, right? And that's natural. Like, that is a natural progression we all have to go through. So we allow our students to do that. We find out what's important to them and what they're really willing to work hard for. We always, and one of the things that we teach our families is, we start with, we believe they have a presumed competence. They can do anything they set out to be. It doesn't matter. Then they either work hard to get it, or they have to have the real conversations with themselves. I don't want to go to school. This class is too hard. The same way you and I do, it's just not, or we did in our young age. It just happened naturally, right? Within ourselves, we're trying to figure it out. With our students, you have to help them connect the dots more, right? We also listen to behavior, which we talk a lot to the families. I have two types of students, which always crack me up. I have the student who says, yes, I want to go to college. They're repeating every word their parents say. And then they go to college and they are not interested, right? They're
Yeah.
misbehaving, they're cutting class, they're doing all these things, but saying the words, I want to go to college. Then I have the other student who I love her, and she says, I hate college. I hate being a grown up. And we're like, okay. She's like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm like, okay, but your class is starting. I got to go. Picks up her backpack, goes, passes the classes, but she mutters the entire way, tells me
Right.
how much she hates being a grown up and a college student, but her behavior tells us, I
Yeah.
want to be a college student and I'm struggling through this. So we really help parents listen to that behavior and help them identify what's important to their student, not to them, or what their dreams are, what their students' dreams are. And then we also try to really respect the diversity of the students, cultural diversity, whatever that may be, and let them explore that part of their lives.
That's so amazing. Maybe you could help us like kind of see the nuts and bolts of this, or kind of where the
Yeah.
rubber's meeting the road. So like, what would a day in the life of a student look like, or a
Okay.
C2C student look like? Like, give us like maybe just a generic kind of an example of that.
Okay, so a day. So what happens is a student shows up to school. What we really hope is that they are getting there on their own, right? They could be there with their parents, but part of it is we're trying to give them as much independence as possible, right? So they show up on the campus or in the community, depending on what the day looks like, because we run a 6-hour day, 5 days a week, because there's components of the program. So we talked about the college component. The other two components of the program are independent living skills, right? Because there are some things that just every young adult needs to learn, right? You need to be able to cook your own meals, right? I'm not talking elaborate meals, but if you can't make a macaroni and cheese or, a simple grilled cheese sandwich, what happens when you want to move out, right? You need to be able to do your own laundry. You need to be able to shop. You need to be able to do money in real life situations. We have students who
Yeah.
come to us who have never handled cash, right?
Yeah.
They handle paper money or fake money in these classrooms. But when it comes to let's go to the 99-cent store and figure out what this $5 is going to be, they don't. So we really make sure that they're getting this experiences in real life situations, right? And they're not fake. It's like you want to do a cooking skill. You're going to have to make the menu. You're going to have to set up your budget. You're going to have to take your cash. We make them take cash.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the store, pay for it, and bring back the change. Like that's really what we're looking. So a day can look like you show up, you've negotiated with your coach. So the coaches are a 2-to-1. So you and another student have one coach to use as support. So I think of your coach as a resource. It's not your supervisor. So you work with this other student and this coach of how are we going to work out the day? I may need that coach in class with me. So we have students who say, I need you sitting right next to me at the beginning to help me focus, to pick up notes that I'm not, right? Whatever, to negotiate the nuance, the social awkwardness of being in a classroom. So we have coaches who'll sit right next to a student, maybe in the back of the classroom, maybe sitting literally outside of the door. So when the student has an anxiety attack, they walk out the door, the coach talks to them for 5 minutes, they go back in, or just being on campus, right? So they work with their coach and figure out the best way the coach can support them that day. Along with that, on campus, we may help them navigate tutoring, right? We don't tutor, right? That's something that they have to learn how to use the resources at hand. So we might
Mm-hmm.
work with them of how do you use a tutor? How do you make the appointments for the tutor, right? We might sit with them and have go into the library and say, how do you study, right? How do you like navigate this? How do you unpack your syllabus? So that's what a coach is doing on campus, right? We also run study groups, so getting used to, because that's a typical college thing, working in study groups. So
Yeah.
we have mandatory study groups at minimum of one hour a week, so they're getting used to it. They start either right now our building headquarters is 2 blocks away. So if I have some behavioral challenges that I know I get too distracted, I may start study group there and then we move to the library, and then we move on campus. And so we're working with them and we're talking to them. It's not punishment. We're helping building your capacity to manage your own life, right? And then ILS skills can be everything for bring your laundry and we'll take it down to the laundromat. And we're going to learn how to do that, cooking. And then the third part of the component of the program is volunteering, because a lot of our students don't have anything for their resume. So we talk about resume building, and we really want their volunteer work to be something they love. Not, we hear a lot of, oh, I want to do this. Well, why do you want to do that? I don't know. Somebody told me that's an easy volunteer. And it's like, well, that sounds dumb. Like, why would you do that? You want to do something that you're willing to put your hard work in. And so we've really worked with them to help using things like volunteer match. Like, so the same programs, our staff don't go out there and find a volunteer job, right? That's the students' work. And so part of that is identifying what it is, going through the application process, the orientation with support, but that's really what they want. I mean, one of the great stories is we had a student who volunteered at the Armory in Pasadena, and he did it, and he's like, I think I'm ready to be without a coach. Like, I am ready to launch on my own. And we're like, great. And he did that for a little bit, and he's like, okay, now I need somebody to come back in because they're only letting me pull weeds. Like, I want to have a different conversation with them, but I'm not feeling I can. So the coach is there to work out that conversation, and then just to be there to kind of prompt them, to be the emotional support that they need. And now he's taken another job. So it's coaching comes in a lot of different ways for our students, but they figure out how the coaching works for them, which is very different than going from a high school program where the staff member is usually the person who's dictating what the student does, how they're going to utilize them. And I would say in the high school program or with the IEPs, the parent is the customer, and they're working for the parents and answering the parents. For us, it's the student is our customer. And so we work directly with the student.
Well, and I think that really captures kind of the natural shift from coming out of high school, right? Where the responsibility now of my life and my agency shifts from being fully supported potentially in high school under an IEP to sometimes feeling like being pushed off the cliff, you know, when you go into a college setting or a collegiate setting, or, you know, trying to engage in your, you know, start your adult life, that it really now the responsibility falls squarely on your own shoulders.
Yes.
And if we haven't had any practice, as with any skill, right, doing that can feel really overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
What it also sounds like is that the coaches, you said 2 to 1, right? 2 students to 1 coach.
Yeah.
That the coaches are following the intent and the lead of the student.
Yes.
So the student's driving the bus or driving their own vehicle, and that the coach is then facilitating that path and that journey. And so, you know, sometimes I can imagine that students don't necessarily come with that kind of clarity.
No, they don't at all. And that's how we start with our discovery program is we have discovery. So the way the program runs is you enter in 2 different times, up to 4 times in our program, but 2 really main points. And that's 6 weeks before the college semester begins, because we do 6 weeks of discovery because we realize a lot of these students don't know what their hopes and dreams are, right? They've been told what they are, but they've never been able to explore them. So we're also doing kind of informal assessments. How are you on public transportation? How are you at ordering your own meal? Things that you need to know on a college campus. How are you with personal space? How are you without supervision? You know, all of these things. And then during that time, we're preparing for their path plan, which is that personal life plan to decide what are my hopes and dreams? What am I willing to work hard for? And how do I want to set my goals up for my journey through college to career? And so with that path plan, that dictates everything that we do with the students, right? And they're the ones who run the plan. And so it could be, I want to drive. And even though I have parents who say, well, they can't drive, I'm like, if they're 18 in the state of California, they can, right? I'm not saying you have to give them a car. I'm not saying you have to pay for their insurance. I'm not saying you have to pay for lessons. What I'm saying is he or she has the right to drive as a citizen of California at the age of 18. Now, what my goal is to develop all of those skills so they can do that, right? And that's
Right.
be able to pass a test. Make them take the bus to go get the test, right? And when the parents hear, like, we're giving them all the components, and I said, so if they came to you with money in hand to pay for the PIMRIT, they're ready to take the test, and they can get to the DMV by themselves, I think that's a different conversation from your young adult to you than right now. And parents are saying, yeah, if they could do that, that is a different conversation. So we try also help parents reframe the thinking of, this is my child who needs all of my, which every parent goes through, but it's even scarier with a child with a disability, that this is my child to this is my young adult who's emerging to adulthood. And so our parents, we also help our parents understand our students have the same rights and we have the expectations for them. One, the dignity of risk, right? We learn as much from our mistakes in life as we do from our successes. And a lot of our students aren't allowed to fail. The IEP program or their families build in a system that either doesn't let them fail, right? So they don't go through those natural growing pains, or they cover up that they failed, right? They pretend it didn't happen. So there's no real conversation, right? There's no conversation of how did this happen? What are we going to do differently? So we allow our students to fail, which is really difficult for our families, because they're like, why aren't your staff stepping in? It's like, we can't make a student go to college, just like nobody could make you go to college, right? Nobody can make you take a test. We give them the same rights, even if it hurts. So when we have to have conversations of academic probation, that is a natural consequence, right? We talk to the students about what that looks like. We talk to them about what a college student expectations are, and they can still choose to ignore all of it and then come up with having to meet with a dean, right? All those things that, and then decide, is college for them? We also help them identify with that, their dreams, whatever that is, and we help them get as close as possible, right? So again, we don't say you can't do it. What we say is, what do you need to be able to do that? Right. So I have a young, which is really important. Like, I have a young man, he's like, I want to be a screenwriter. I'm like, great. And then he came to me probably about 6 months later and he goes, Kelly, I need better reading and writing skills to be a screenwriter. I'm like, yeah. So what are you going to do about that? And he's like, I think I want to use my coach to learn how to read better. I'm like, all righty then. And that's the movement that we look at. It's not, you're not a good reader, bummer for you. It's, what are you willing to do? And so he signed, last time we started doing these work groups, the study groups, 3 hours a week and doing nothing but reading and just developing that skill better. He's like, because I have a lot of ideas up here, I just don't know how to get them out on paper. And that's what we do with our students, opposed to just saying, you won't be able to do that. It's, what are you willing to work hard for? And also helping our families really see their student in a different light, right? I think so many of them, which I understand, you see the limitations or the lost dreams you've had for them, and sometimes it clouds what their student can be. And that's really part of helping them redefine who their student is and help revisit that relationship, as this is a young adult and they'll be an adult a lot longer than they're going to be a child. And so how do we have that grown-up relationship and respecting all of those things? And so we kind of do it together.
Yeah, and I think what's so important, and you've highlighted this, which is, in order for a parent to let go, if their student or their child's been supported in a very comprehensive, let's say, school program up to this point, the parent, it can let go into that. Albeit if the program is good, okay.
Yeah.
And now it's a new frontier, right? Now they can be conserved or not conserved. Now they're going into a brand new system where the accommodations at the collegiate level, you and I both know, are maybe 2 compared to the 25 that you can list in an IEP. And so what helps parents let go is to see action, is to see behavior growth and change that is intrinsically motivated and driven by their own now adult child, right? And so in order to do that, parents need to trust that there is a system in place that has some thoughtfulness, that has some goals, that has, we're aligned in the same outcomes, right? Which ultimately, I think for most parents and programs, it is, how do we support you to be the best you can be, right? Whatever that looks like for that person. I mean, speaking of, outcomes, what would you say are C2C's biggest desired outcomes for their students?
So for us, is really gaining the confidence to be independent, right? Because some kids, what I hear, which always breaks my heart, is I can never do that. I will never be able to do that. When we talk about public transportation, it's like, yeah, you will. Yeah, you can, right? So giving them the confidence and then the skills to feel as an adult, as a grown-up adult, that's really one of the outcomes. And whatever that looks like for them, right? Is it making their own money? Is it making what I call grown-up decisions, right? What does that look like? I think dreaming big. I want my students who come to me that say, which is always, it cracks me up. I've decided all IEPs go to Target and Best Buy, because most of my students want to work at Target and Best Buy. And when we talk about that, it's because that's all they know. And so what I want them when they leave us, I want them to talk about all the different options in their life. So choice is true choice. And they've been exposed to so many things and to been able to explore so many different paths. They can have true choice, right? I think it's also that they can make a choice. We have students who have no fault to the parents, right? We all want to take care of our babies and all of that, but they go from their parents making choices to them to the school making choices to them, that I have students who can't even tell me where they want to go to eat, right? They don't know. They want somebody to tell them. So the fact that they can have an opinion, they can make a choice, those are outcomes, because that's how you have self-advocacy for yourself, right? When you look at, like I have a young man when Regional Center said, no, we're not going to support this program because his certificate was dropped at PCC, no fault of his own. And they said, we're not going to be able to support your program because you're not in a certificate program. And, we've worked with him for a few years. He goes, so what is the process for that? I'm like, well, there's an appeal process. And he's like, well, I think that's what we're going to do. Now, if you met this young man at the beginning, he wouldn't have been able to have that conversation. So there he is writing his letter to his regional center saying, I want an appeal and let me know what my next steps are. And that's now, fantastic. Lo and behold, guess what? He's in the program again. And that is that empowerment to say you have the right, you have a voice, and people will listen, right? That's our outcomes. And we see that all the time. The young man going to college, who he's taken us to his university because he's like, I can't figure out why not. Let me advocate for myself. So those are the outcomes, and all that advocating looks differently, right? Those are the big ones, but it's even somebody who tells their parent, I don't want to go to college, right? We don't look at as failure for us. What we look at is you finally have a choice. You have something to compare it to, and you can say, right now, college isn't for me, which is a real conversation for any young adult, right? College is
Absolutely.
hard. You have to want to do it. So when we have a student who says, I don't want to, it's by true choice. And that's what we like, that they can
Yeah.
articulate what it is and why they want to try something different. And that it doesn't mean they can't come back to college. They're just not ready now. And so those are the
Yeah.
outcomes we're really looking for, is allowing them to have the same experiences as an emerging adult or a young adult that we all have had.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Really allowing that authentic kind of space, right?
Yeah.
Which is hard sometimes to put language to, right?
Yeah,
And
it
so
is.
you
Yeah.
sometimes you need the experience to be able to put language to the experience.
Yeah.
Kelly, how long would you say a typical student is in the C2C program with you?
That's a hard one. People always want to,
Yeah.
kind of come up with a time, because what we have to do is really meet the student where they are. And so part of, like, they may take a year to just figure out college, like to be
Yeah.
able to, because if they come to us without self-regulation, right? Being able to self-manage their lives. Our first year may be teaching them, how do you self-manage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let alone on a college campus, let alone any place else. Some of it could be, I had a one-to-one aide, with all of these accommodations and for my IEP, and now you're putting me in a classroom with 30 other people, right? That in itself is building that capacity is huge. Or I get up and walk around anytime I want. Well, you can't
Yeah.
do that in college all the time, right?
Yep.
They're not going to make you stay there, but you're going to miss a lot of notes, right? The
Sure.
professor. So it really depends. I mean, this year we have 2 students who are getting their AAs and moving on to universities. One of them will support, the other one we're going to have more conversations with their regional center. Other ones who are getting certificates, right? So it could be anywhere from a 2-year program, but some people, it may take us a year just to get them ready to start their college career. And so it's a really hard piece. I know when I took it over, people were like, we need to come up with a date. But if you're truly doing person-centered planning and you're meeting the student where they are, then we do that. And so I try not to give a date. You do have to take classes and be moving toward some completion, right? You have to be moving toward something. So we do move them forward. It's not just you get to sit in limbo or not take classes. The only time we allow classes not to be taken is the winter, like there's called an intersession.
The intercessions,
Yeah,
that are
because
like
those
these
are,
lightning rounds. I mean,
thank you.
yeah.
I took it, and so when I went to school, I took it one time and it almost killed me. And I thought I would never make anybody do that. But we do have students who do that, right? They're ready for that. They love that lightning round. But a typical, disabled or not, a typical student is not ready to compact 18 weeks into 6. Like that is just very hard. So that's when we put together our workshops. And what we're doing is our professional workshops, their independent living skill workshops, and their interest workshops of how do we find out what's important to you or what you like. And then we offer them a lot of different things to explore a lot of different interests, because part of being a grown-up, or in my mind, being a healthy grown-up, is knowing how to use your leisure time, how to deal with your downtime, right? How do you engage when you're not in a structured program? And so we realize that's very important to a lot of our young adults, because they have been programmed that when they're left alone, it is not pretty. And they get into trouble.
Yes. Idle time.
Yes, exactly.
Can lead to that. You know, can we talk about, and shift gears just a scooch? Can we talk about how C2C works with the disabled student programs and services, or what we know this is DSPS, but just in case people don't know what that is, could you describe what that service is at the collegiate level, and then talk about how C2C works with them?
Yeah, so I can talk about how we work with PCC and kind of as we're moving forward with Channel Islands University. So all of those colleges have their own disabled student service program. And so that's where accommodations are met. And as you said, accommodations are very limited. You may have a note taker. You may have an aide that you can have in class. You may have extra time on a test. You may have a recording device allowed in your program. And you're pretty much limited to those things, right?
Yeah.
That is your accommodations. And if you have deaf of hard of hearing or sight impaired, there may be some additional ones, but that's what you get. And so that's how the school works with the professors or the teachers on campus to make sure the students' accommodations are made. So that if you have an extended test, they are the ones who get the test, proctor it someplace else, so you have your extended time or not being interrupted. Where we come into working with DSPS, we're in a partnership. So we work, they know we're on campus. I have right now, I say on campus, even though we're in this time of remote learning. And when we left PCC, we had 50 students and 25 staff on campus. So our program had about 75 people at any given time on their campus. So we have to work in partnership, right? We sit on their committees, and so we're working with them. We're talking about what we're doing. In the classrooms, they know who our coaches are, right? We explain what's the difference between a coach and maybe a PSA, because PSAs are their private, personal
Service
attendants,
support system.
right? Support system. They may deal somebody more with behavior. We don't. If a student wants to misbehave, they have the right to misbehave. If they want to do their what I call their bonehead behavior, they have the right, just like any other college student does. We may coach them not to do that, but that's the dignity of risk, right? All of us learn, especially I was that person, right? I am not the 50-year-old you see today is not the 20-year-old, going through college, that you learn that, oh, I can't do that. I can't just do what I want when I want. And so we work with the professors in the DSP office saying a coach is there to support them. We're not there to supervise them. And so they help us do that. We also give, with that now with the remote, because of that relationship, when we went to remote services, we were able to meet with the DSPS office and say, we need to be in the classrooms. We need to be in there via Zoom. How do we do that? So we have a long, standing relationship with them, and we talk about we're in it for the same reason. We have two different functions, and how do we work together to make it happen? And so that's kind of how we work with them. We don't make any decisions for a student about their education. So we're not school counselors. What our staff does is say, we think you should meet with a counselor. This is how you go do it. And we may sit in that meeting with them. We might prep them for the meeting, meaning what do you want to talk about? What should a college student talk about? Or sometimes the parents, especially if a child is concerned with education, that may be a parent's job. And we'll say, that is your role. We will not take that role. We'll just, help the student make the appointment, and then you go into that. If they're not conserved and the student wants to try it, we allow them to do that. And they can take a coach or not a coach. We always encourage a coach, but if the student says no, because sometimes being a young adult, you're too cool to have a coach, right? And there's some pluses and minuses with that, which we allow them to do.
I really love this concept of the dignity of risk. And I think that, that can feel scary.
Oh, yeah.
To any one of us that are parents, right? Especially when we've been trying to protect our kids from risk forever, you know? And so that idea of, and maybe just expanding that life, we often take calculated risks. You're not you're talking about calculated risks here. You're not talking about life-threatening things. Obviously, that's a time when you might say, no. We're not doing that. Okay.
We're not doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So that's so important, because I think what that draws up, and even in me as a parent, is this idea of, how much do I trust my own kid?
Exactly.
How much do I trust this system, this program,
Yeah.
right? And what does this mean about me too? What does it mean as a parent, and my own tolerance for risk, and tolerance for change, and tolerance for ambiguity, and
Yeah.
and I think that is also, that can mirror parents that also have adult children without disabilities as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, I
Completely. That's the
mean,
hardest thing.
so hard. I mean, so hard. Um, Kelly, there are other college type support programs out there, like a college living experience or a college internship program. Can you help people differentiate college to career from a program like that?
Yeah, in fact, we've had 2 students start with our program as kind of the training ground. What does that look like? And it helped build confidence for their parents, because those programs are live-in programs. So you go and you live in either like simulated dorm living, right? So you're not on the campus, and that they're really away from their families, right? So again, you live with your family, and we support you kind of locally. That's where we are now with PCC. All of our students live at home and then come to PCC, and they're with us about 6 hours a day. Those other programs are, you move away just like you would going away to college. You move away, and we've had 2 students who have done that. That their parents wanted to see how they did in our program, so we were the training ground, build confidence, and also with one of the parents, it was the negotiation. It's like, you want this live away experience? I need to see how you do
Show me this
at home.
first.
Show this to me. And the kid did brilliantly, right? And the parents like, we are ready for that next step, right? And so it helped build that confidence for you to go live away, make these grown-up decisions, which they are, right? Though, because nobody's supervising you. And what was fun is those programs, which is interesting, only run like the academic year. And so when her summer ended, they contacted us back and said, we don't want her to lose the skills. And so she advocated with her regional center to come back into our summer program. And so Wint came back because the value of keeping those skills up, right? Doing something, moving toward their goals. And so that's really what I see with the differences. It's theirs is live away. So I think it's that next step, right? Because I think it'd be very scary if you have a child who's never made a grown-up decision in their life to go live on their own. I mean, that is a very tough, they shouldn't be practicing grown-up decisions there, right? I mean, for your first time, because they could be so life-changing, right? Opposed to where we are. Because even though we don't, so when I say we don't work with the parents, that we work with the parents limitedly. So please understand, what we do is, if we do have a student who is showing behavior that we are worried about, we're going to bring in what we call an IDT, an interdisciplinary team. And the parent is one of them, right? And the student knows this. It's like, if you don't want us to have to tell the world about your behavior, then you have to behave this way. If not, you force me as an agency to make some different decisions. And so at that point, we bring in their team, which is their caseworker or their service coordinator from regional center, their parent, them, their coach, me, their supervisor. We say, all right, let's have a real meeting, right? Why? And behavior is communication. Is this behavior telling me you don't want to be in college? Is this behavior telling me you need more supports than we can provide? Right? So that conversation happens. We have it at times that the child's on academic probation. They're showing what I call scary behavior that's going to get them injured. Like, we've had students who just leave. They'll tell a staff member they're going to the bathroom, and they leave campus right? So there's a part of me
Right.
that's like, rock on, like you figured it out. And the other part of me,
Right.
like, we're shutting that down
Right.
right now, right?
Quick. Right,
Exactly. Because
Quick.
gaining independence, sometimes our students, just like any young adult, they lose their mind. And so how do we
Yeah.
help them have the balance of, I get to make all my own decisions, and then knowing that some decisions can get me hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how we work with
Yeah.
them. So I'd say those are the difference between our programs of really the live away from home to we're still supporting you in the home.
Yeah, and I love seeing that as a continuum of service,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
of kind of this gradual build up of
Mm-hmm.
confidence and skills. And, much like we spoke about earlier, that when we see our kids or we see our students behave and act
Mm-hmm.
in certain ways, that
Yeah.
builds confidence in us as
Most
well,
definitely.
as a system, as parents, as a provider, as
Yeah.
and that actions do speak loud. And
Mm-hmm.
and that how you've been saying it this whole time is behaviors communicate.
Yeah.
Behaviors say something. We need to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention,
Yes.
and see them and have a dialogue about it,
Mm-hmm.
and meet them. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so
and we do
lovely.
that with our program. So our students have to debrief every day with their coaches. And so that's part of what I realize with young adults with disabilities or not, getting feedback is very difficult in life. Nobody wants
Yeah,
feedback,
yeah,
right? Unless it's
yeah,
good, right?
yeah,
And we see a lot of people, and even like I said, I employ a lot of people. Feedback is so difficult for them, and we realize that you need to be able to take feedback and of your own self, right? So it's
yeah.
not the coach saying, "Oh, Gwen, you didn't do this." What we do is say, "So you said you wanted to work on your DMV handbook, and you didn't. What gives, right?
Right.
Why?
What now?
What's going
What?
on? Exactly. What do
Right.
you want to do? Why?" And a lot of it is the structure we have set up was we put their goals, and it's like, as your goals change,
Yeah.
playing video games is not really going to get you to what you want. Now, we can't stop them from playing on their phones, but what we can
Yeah.
do is keep reminding them that this is not getting you to your goals, right? This is
Yep.
not, this is going to get you toward academic probation. This is not going to get you to where you want. So our coaches and students meet every day to talk about what they put out for them for that day. Did they meet that goal? And so really
Mm-hmm.
helping our students put it together, kind of have that self-assessment of, am I doing what I set out to do? Learning how to set goals and achieving them, and having how to have that difficult conversation with themselves. And that's really
Yeah.
nice, what I really like, because for a lot of they have to decide. That's where they're starting to really make that choice of, I don't want to do this. Okay, great. What do you want to do next? Right.
Right.
And
Right.
or I don't want to get a job. Okay, what, in my life or in my family, which I tell students, is in my family, my daughter is not going to sit on the couch and play videos all day. That is not an option. It's work or school, her choice. But those are the two options for any grown up in our home. Like,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
so if your parents feel the same way, we have to help you choose one or the other. And so how are we going to do that? And so that's some of the conversations with them, because a lot of our students, which a lot of young adults don't put together, that there's something after playing video games through high school, right? Like, there's more to
Right.
life and responsibility. So
Yeah, and part of that is just the pure ability to be a little bit more future oriented, or set
mm-hmm.
goals,
Yeah.
or delay gratification, or
Yeah.
the executive functioning just to make a plan,
Make a plan.
and
Yeah.
to do it, and to control your impulses to play the video
Mm-hmm.
game in order to go to class. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all of these, things that we just see where the rubber is really meeting the road.
Yeah. And it's so important, because I think in what I have seen, and also being through an IEP program. So remember, I have a daughter that they talk about it in theory, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
theoretical stuff that happens in high school
Yeah.
with these ideas, but it's not practiced. in real life situations with real life consequences, because no IEP team wants to say, oh, they failed, right? that is not part of the conversation. Well, with us, what we realize, it's all practice, right? And we have the real conversation of, your executive function does not work the way everybody else's does. So what is it? What are those challenges? And what we also do with that, it made me think, is what I see in a lot of our students is the embarrassment of their disability or challenges. They don't want to identify with this group of people. And it's really sad to me, right? It's sad because you and I we gravitate to people we like, right? So for me, it's going to be moms, or it's going to be people who are gay, or people who love Comic-Con, or people who like, right? All these little groups that I identify with, right? I have a learning disability myself, right? I was a senior in college when I finally had a group to be able to pinpoint it and say, I'm never going to be able to read the way I think I should, right? That was life-changing for me. And for a student not to be able to grasp onto that and say, I'm never going to be able to do this, right? I'm never going to be able to take notes when people are talking to me. And if they keep playing to that weakness, they will always feel less than. But if they say, I'll never be able to take notes, and I will always have to have a note taker, and let that go, the empowerment of that, because that's just a challenge, right? So we teach them, what are your challenges? Can we overcome it, or do we need to work around it? What is the workaround for that disability or that challenge? And having those real conversations, because very few people want to admit what their challenges are, right? Or they play it on. IEP program and the regional center program is deficit-based, right? It's absolutely deficit-based. So when a student comes in, we don't read those as a group, right? I have what they call the education navigator, who's my case manager, does the intake, the meet and greet, all of that. And then when they introduce the student to us, we hear about what they want to do, what's their education, and we get to learn about this person without the preconceived ideas of all of their deficits. And that is life-changing for our students, because parents will say, have you read the IEP? No. Why not? Because it doesn't matter, right? I want to meet Gwen. I want to make Gwen, who is fun and perky and thinks she wants to be a rock star. And that's the person I want to meet. The IEP is the education part, which we'll get to, but that's not who she is. And so for some of our parents, they're so used to telling you every deficit, and that's how they introduce and see their child. That's how their child sees them. And so we are strength-based, right? We look at all the good things. And then what we do is we deal with the deficit. What we say is, that's a challenge. How are we going to overcome your challenge? That it call it what it is. It's a challenge. And that's, for some of them, I'm really able to relate with them, because they know I'm not going to be able to do this, right? I don't do this. There's somebody who edits all my work. To a point into my career, I have somebody who writes my stuff, because why am I going to play to my deficit? Like you don't have to. There's other people, right? I always say I have the gift of gab. That is what I play to. I have a friend who is an amazing writer, and I'm like, you write it up for me, within the agency, you do that, and I will speak every great thing you say. And teaching our students that is a option, opposed to playing to your deficits.
And there's this piece that really speaks to me. It reminds me of the struggle that I had with what I was going to call my podcast, and I want to use that as an excuse for why it took me so long. But I finally came up with Disabled and Empowered.
Oh, I love that.
Because I think with ownership comes empowerment.
Yeah.
And I find I can really, really relate to what you're saying, because so many of my clients come to me with what they can't do. Or seeing themselves a certain way, or that we've been trying to hide it from them for so long.
Oh, yeah.
But they know something's going on. So now they feel shame.
Yeah.
But when we say, this is how you work,
Yeah.
own it.
Yes.
Now let's move.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's just this, and so now we see, I asked one of my clients the other day, what is the benefit of having autism?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like they almost fell over. Like,
yeah.
What? Like this is, and what we discovered is how amazing their memory is. Memory I could never touch, how quickly they can see things. It was all of these things that leads to real life value, in the sense of, oh man, if we connected you to work that utilize these skills, you're unstoppable. No one's going to be able to touch you here. And so I love this idea of like really owning the identity, that there is nothing shameful or wrong with having a disability. And so as an ally myself, like I me, this is my tribe as well. And I love it. Okay. Sorry.
I was going to say with that.
Yeah.
No. With that. So like, I'll use my daughter, and my daughter has given me permission to share some of the stuff with her.
Thank you, daughter.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, she's great. As she says, just tell them they got nothing on me, Mom. Right. Because we have gone through, a lot of interesting times with her. And one of the things is we'd really talk to her about her brain wiring. Right? Like, this is brain wiring, nothing else. It's not about being better than or less than. It's brain wiring. And we can rewire your brain some, which when I finally read a book that said that, I'm like, oh, that's where we're going. Because you don't hear those things, right? You don't hear that you can help somebody rewire it, or at least own it, right? And so what was interesting is we went through years of really helping her identify, and she doesn't identify as somebody on the spectrum. Every once in a while, she's like, I think that's showing, right? That's what she'll say. I think, the spectrum's showing right now in certain things. But she does. She has an amazing brain, like, perfect pitch, can play music by just listening to it, writing. But her reality is everyone should do that, right? So trying to really identify, like, have you heard me try to play a piano? Like, that's not it, right? So when it really came to be, and the first time she really identified, she chose college wasn't for her, is just not very brilliant, very smart, but the structure was not one thing she wanted to comply to, which school was structure. And we said, great, go get a job. And she did, moved out, got a job in a distribution place, and was making like absolutely blowing nationwide numbers, because in distribution, it's all about the numbers, right? And when I say nationwide, it's like across the United States, because they're coming to her like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she finally, they said, how can you do this? She goes, because I'm autistic. Like, unless you're autistic, your brain is not going to work this way.
Right.
I can remember things.
So move aside.
Exactly. And they did. And they were like, whoa. And so she worked there as like part-time at the beginning. And now this is what her career is going to be. But she worked there for a month and a half and ranked 1, 2, or 3 from the second day on. And one day hit every number 1 across all of them. And was the first time she realized, this is my niche in life.
Yeah.
My brain wiring is going to allow me to succeed in this kind of environment where all of that matters. Rote work that I can keep doing every day, all day.
Right. Without even blinking.
More energy than the average person.
Yep.
The ability to anticipate and memorize that memory. She's like, I can't even explain that memory, right? It's almost photographic, but not, right? And then that ability to move my body in a way that can keep all of that going for an entire 8 hours. And it was like, Savannah, I think we got something on here. And she goes, yeah, they need to hire more autistic people, because if they did, they would have a team of people like me to being able to do this. And it's those things, and having a daughter who can have different conversations with me about that has really helped me in my work and having conversations with families and students, because she is able to articulate, and plus she's grown up with me and within our program and all these things, she gets it. But she'll say, I think you need to go talk to these people about this, or I think you're missing something with your student, or have you thought about this, right? Just different ways that we're able to help our students understand that it's just your wiring, right? It's just, and so how do we either overcome it or change it? And for them to know that they can change their wiring, that's the empowerment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so awesome. I love hearing those stories too. I just love it. It's like, yeah, I just love it. Anyway, Kelly, what would you say is the ideal student? The words I used with you earlier were in the pocket student.
In the pocket,
you know? In the pocket. Like who's that ideal student for college to career?
I think it's a combination. So one, the student and the family have to be ready for the journey. I mean, they absolutely have to be ready to want this individual to be a grown-up. Because if they're not, our program does not work for them, right? We're in constant odds with, we want independence, and the parents are saying we don't want independence, right? So they have to, the student has to want to also develop those skills. We, unlike some other programs, we don't test out, we don't assess out, right? What we say is, in which we've done the research, in the state of California, anybody over the age of 18 has the right to go to community college. That is my take. You have the right to go to community college. Now, you may not make it into community college, just like I can't even tell you, I used to know the success rate of community college, right? But a lot of people start and they end. That is a natural progression. So it's really about the drive. They want to do it. They want to be coached. They want to try college. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but you're going to have to want to try, right? And you're going to want to have to do some job skills, right? We want you to volunteer. If you're willing, that's the pocket student. And we have success rates. Like I said, I have somebody who's going off to, they went to one of the live-in programs, I think it was CLE possibly with UCLA, right? One in Fresno. We've had 2 that are graduating and going to universities, art schools, right? We have a lot of different ones. And then we have some other ones who are just trying to figure out, they're being successful. Some who decided they're going to work, right? They gained some skills, a few classes to get them a better resume, or students that keep trying to get toward, a GED, a high school diploma, or an AA.
Nice.
So it's really somebody who wants to do it, and their families have to be willing to allow them the growth.
Got it. And you've mentioned regional center a lot. Is that the primary way that C2C is funded for your students?
We have 2 different fundings, So that's a primary way. Most definitely, we get a lot of referrals from regional center. We're vendored through regional center, and we work with about 4 of them. But also, we have been the transition program for high school programs. And so we've worked with 2 different high schools where we are the transition program from 18 to 22-year-olds.
When did that start?
It started about 2 years ago when I started. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to need to talk offline more about that. Okay, that's fantastic. So working with high schools for that. So that would be school district funded.
School district funded. So we work with the school districts. We get contracts with them, and we are a transition program. So
fantastic.
It's very exciting.
And that is really exciting. I mean, because, there are some students that need that instead of a gap year, for example, where we kind of don't know what we're doing. Go into some structure that allows independent living skills, that allows some job, exploration or vocational exploration.
Exactly.
Gives you a taste of being what it's like to be an adult and making decisions and working on mobility and money and, all of these really underrated, by the way, I think skills that are the heart of being empowered. If you can take care of yourself, and get yourself to places and feed yourself. And that's very empowering.
Oh, yeah.
We just
Most
forget
definitely.
about some of those little things sometimes.
I think that's the whole thing, is that we take as especially as adults or as independent adults, we take for granted we learned that somewhere, right? And some of us learned it faster, some of us made it easy, right? But what we forget is true learning happened to get that, right? The burning your first meal, right? Or thinking you're going to bake something and be like, oh, I've got to watch the cookie, right? Whatever it is. And then you put that in your mind, you're like, I won't do that next time, or I am never making that again, right?
Yeah.
Or losing your money, or getting in your first car accident, or getting lost, in downtown LA. We learn, but we forget that, right? And that's when we talk about the dignity of risk, is we forget we learned all those things growing up, right? Those are all the pieces and parts that made me who I am today, right? As much as the negative parts are the things I'm embarrassed about, taught me how to be the person today. And that's what we allow for our students. And you were saying about, which I don't think we really hit with the work. The other thing is, because I said earlier that, I have students who say, I want to work here and here. When we do work exploration, we go in and interview what that looks like. So when I have a student who says, I want to be an usher at a movie theater, why do you want to do that? Because I get to watch movies. No. So what we do is we set up times with movie theaters that they set up the meeting, and they meet with the manager. They meet with the people who are sweeping, cleaning the toilets, making the popcorn, all these things. So then that can still be your choice, but it's not about movies. So we're really working with them to go to those locations and have conversations. Right? We do mock interviewing skills. So we have some volunteer groups. So not only does our HR department, they volunteer their time to do interviews and give feedback, but then once they do that, and they do that during discovery, right? So they get used to it. Then they go out, and we have 2 different volunteer groups, professionals, right, in the community, and they'll interview our students. And so they get dressed up, they prepare, and then they give them feedback. And so we're trying to really give them these real life skills, to see what it's going to be like, right? Writing the resume, going through the interview, interviewing different jobs, because we want you to, I mean, I had so many crappy jobs growing up, right? When it took me 10 years to get my degree because it was so hard. But because I had to take all those bad jobs, it was like, I have to get a degree. This is not where I want to be at 40. Exactly. Right. And I did them all. I mean, you name it, I did the job. And that was my inspiration to have the tenacity for 10 years. And like I said, senior in college, to find out I had a learning disability. So right there, you can tell it was a tough path. But our students need the same thing, right? They need those job experiences. They need those understanding that there's more than one job. And the job I have at 20 is not the job I'm going to have at 25, 30, 40, and 50, hopefully, right?
Right.
Or if it is, then it better be a job I love, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay too, but opposed to thinking that I can only do one thing, right? And also what we look at with job skills, when I read like an IEP or something, it's like, oh, Kelly talks much. I tell people this all the time. If I had an IEP, right, which I didn't, if I had an IEP, they would have said, Kelly talks too much. Kelly is fragmented. Kelly can't focus. And Kelly moves around way too much, right? That would have been my IEP. And my entire 12 years would have been trying to stop me to do all of that. I make a living because I talk too much. I can change gears faster than anyone, right? I have so much energy, we can barely bottle it, right? And I can be fragmented because that allows my agency to be able to use me in many different ways. So instead of 12 years working to get that out of me, right, I learned how to manage those challenges and found the people to help me curb that a little bit, redefine it, refine it to be the person I am today, who makes a living out of things that would have been on my IEP to stop me from doing. And so that's the piece we also make connection with the students of, you have the gift of gab. You need to be in customer service. Like
Right.
that's what you
Right.
need to be. Forget all
Right.
this other stuff. You are brilliant. Let's give you some phone skills. Let's get you some,
Yep.
how to talk with people, how to do these things. And we're going to play to that and find volunteer opportunities to allow them to do that. And some of them, it may
Yeah.
be within AbilityFirst because it's a safe place for them. Some of
Yep.
them want that,
Yep.
right? Why wouldn't I? Just like any other volunteer, why wouldn't I? But then
Yeah.
if not, let's go out into the real world, right? You can use that as a resume, and now we're putting it out there. So that's how we look at job skills. We look at what you're good at, and then we find the work that's going to allow you to do that.
Yeah, which really makes when you do have to work hard, because even if it's a job you love and you're good
Yeah.
at, there's still parts of that job that you got to contend with that you might not love, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so how do you do that? But the first thing is to be aligned with something that comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
And then you fill in the gaps, right? Or you hone the skill.
Yeah.
And maybe you work on the braking system a little bit. I can really relate, and I think just in working with you in the past, you and I are similar in some ways in the sense that we're energetic and we're eager and we can go fast in different directions, and that's what makes it fun, right? This is probably the most controlled we've ever looked.
Yeah, exactly.
Been.
I know.
To be
I know.
quite honest, right? So how do people get to you, Kelly? Like if someone says, after listening to this interview, this has really transformed or opened my mind in some different ways. I want to explore this more. How would people get to C2C or get to you?
Okay, there's a couple of different ways. One, you can go on our website, which is abilityfirst.org, right, and look for our program, C2C, and there's a way that you can fill in the information and it'll be sent to us, right? But also my contact information is on there. You can call us or email us. Our customer service rule for a family is if you contact us, you'll hear back from us within 3 days. Right, that is kind of our goal. Within that 3 days, if you are interested in our program, we'll have a meet and greet within 30 days. 30 days from the beginning of talking to us to be the acceptance, right? So we move relatively quickly because this is your life, right? We don't sit and wait, right? We just can't. So referrals, we get referrals from regional centers, right? You can go to your regional center counselor. We work with Lanterman, Sangay, Pomona, East LA, and South Central LA, right? So those are the ones that we currently work with. You can talk to your school district and they can contact us. We have 2 that we've worked with, and we actually help navigate that, especially for school districts that are new to us. We started with 1 and we just got a second one to say this makes sense. We've also, we're willing to talk to a family. What we do tell families is your student needs to be present. We don't have conversations about this program without your student, which is really important. Nothing about them without them. And that's kind of our mantra. And so families have to be ready for that. So we do encourage a student to be part of that. We know shyness and everything is there, but we do encourage that very much. And so I can give you my email, which is kprivitt@abilityfirst.org. So that's kprivitt@abilityfirst.org is one way you can email me, and I'll get you into the system.
That's awesome. And I'll also put all of the links in the description.
Yeah.
So I'll link that up too. Okay. I like to end all of my interviews this way.
Okay.
Which is, if you could only choose one skill to empower an individual with, what would it be?
To help them identify what is important to them.
Yes. And that has rolled as a consistent theme throughout this interview.
Yeah.
And, you are the heart of this program. You are the
Thank you.
heart and soul of this program. And I think, to have the voice come through, right? To give the opportunity for the voice to happen in the first place. And then to give it some substance, which is so fantastic. And that it's dynamic and it's highly personal, and it's also timely in the sense of this age group is highly transformative.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And
Thank
your
you.
generosity of your spirit. I love it. I'm so thankful that I have you as a colleague to rely on and collaborate with. So
thank you so much.
Thanks so much for watching and spending your time and energy here. I hope this interview with Kelly triggered an insight or transformed your thinking in a meaningful way. Contact information for AbilityFirst's College to Career program is in the description below, where you'll also find a link for the transcript of this interview. If you got any value from this interview, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, where my goal is to empower you with reliable information that can transform thinking to practical action. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.